Welcome to this episode of What's Happening Waupaca. I am Joni Kern. We have Jim Beard here, who is the FVT, the Fox Valley Technical College horticulturist, correct? Retired horticulturist. You never get out of plants. You just never do. But you are here today. Welcome, Jim.
Thank you.
We are going to talk about organic gardening. And when I found out that, I'm like, oh, this is going to be a great conversation, because the more organic I am, the happier I am. And you are going to be teaching the class at the Tech during Spring Extravaganza on April 22nd.
Correct.
But we want to talk today specifically about organic gardening and what we can do, correct?
Yes.
So tell me, from your experience, why I should want to be an organic gardener.
It's healthy. It's easy. A lot of people think we're just discovering organic gardening. That was discovered back at the time of Jesus.
Sure.
We messed it up when we got into chemicals in the 40s, okay?
Yep.
Now we're rediscovering it again. So if you don't put chemicals on, if you work up the soil, if you add manures and organic fertilizers, you're an organic gardener.
See, that's why I have horses. It's just for the manure for my garden. It's a great way to keep the garden healthy, because even with an organic garden, if you plant and plant and plant, you will eventually take a lot of the nutrients out of the soil, correct?
Yes.
So we do need to replenish them.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So what are you going to be doing specifically during your class on April 22nd?
Well, we're going to prepare this class for the person who says, gosh, I'd like to garden, but I don't know anything about it. And how much fun is it, and how easy is it? Well, it's probably the easiest thing you're going to do since you learned how to breathe. And we're going to start with stratification, so that those of us who maybe don't have the funds that we can go out and buy a lot of seeds and a lot of plants, but how can we get our own? We can do that through stratification. And we do that by taking about a half a cup of unscented kitty litter and about a half a cup of peat moss, ground peat moss. We make it into a cookie dough in October. We pick the cone flowers, take the seeds out of the cone flowers, put it in the cookie dough, put it in the refrigerator, pull it out in February, put it in a flat, and in May you're going to have cone flowers this big.
So I just spread it out in a flat?
After it's gone through the stratification.
Sure.
Because what we're doing is we're taking it through the winter and bringing it into the spring, but we're taking it into the winter back in October, and we're bringing it out in February.
And I can do this with all of my plants. So I can do this with my flowers, I can do this with my tomatoes.
Yep.
Everything?
Yep. Trees, anything.
Fabulous. So you actually were telling me a little story about you go to an adult daycare.
I do.
And
yes.
What do you do there?
These are people that have challenges most of us couldn't handle. And what I do is I go in the fall and I take seeds. And they now know my name is Jim, so when I walk in, everybody's, Jim, how you doing? Sure. And we take these seeds, we make the kitty litter, make the mixture, we put it in Ziploc bags, and we put the seeds on the table, and then these residents or these patients put those seeds in the Ziploc bags, and then they put them in their refrigerator. Now, I'll be going back there now in about 2 weeks, 3 weeks. We're going to take the seeds out and put them in flats, put the little plastic covers over them, set them in their windows, and they go water them every day and look at them. And in about 4 or 5 weeks, they're going to have plants, and by May, they're going to have plants this big.
Fabulous.
So they can see that process of life in the plant community on a yearly basis in a very simple, very inexpensive way.
And I'll tell you, I've bought seeds and started them indoors, and it's really fun to watch them germinate and grow.
It is.
I mean, that is just it's very, I think it's so natural and brings us back in touch with where we came from, which is gardening and nature and natural food and all of that.
Yes.
So, okay, so that's stratification. So how do we then make sure that the plants are put in the right spot, because some need partial sun, some need full sun, they do better with that. And how do I build a garden if I live in the city and don't have a nice big lawn to do that?
Several ways. Raised beds is one of the ways, because the raised bed, you can put all the nutrients that you need in that garden bed. That can be, we have some that are 2 foot by 4 foot. So if you said, gee, I'd like to have 2 tomato plants and a pepper plant, that's a perfect size. You can grow them right off your patio. And you put in good soil. If you go to the landfill, and sometimes the landfill gets a little dicey, because what's really in the compost, we don't always know, but it's probably better than some of the other things you could put out there. Probably. And then if you know somebody who has animals and there's some manures, even if the manure is a little bit older, it works really, really well. So it's mixing some manures in with some soil. If you don't want to build a box, you can cut the sod out and you can create a little garden. So gardens can be small. Usually gardens are not as big as our eyes think they ought to be. Or they're bigger than our eyes think they ought to be, because we think, oh, that's all this, I'll just have a few tomatoes, so they put in 6. And they find out they can only eat enough from 1. So plant 1.
Sure. Don't you have to plant them in pairs?
Well, not necessarily. I think you're going to get, it means it's a good idea, but I think a lot of times, you'll see sometimes a container with just a tomato plant. And particularly if you live in a neighborhood where there's a lot of gardens, you're going to get some pollination from the gardens in the area.
Wonderful. So what other plants work good? Because the raised beds are a great idea for anyone who is physically challenged.
Absolutely.
Whether they're in a chair or bending or arthritic or whatever, it's just a great idea to have a raised bed. What other plants work well in that kind of a situation with the buckets?
What kind of vegetables do you like to eat?
Oh, great. So it's wide open. Anything,
Yes.
beans,
Beans,
carrots,
peas, tomatoes, carrots, onions,
so I can
peppers.
So I can do anything I want to do
Absolutely,
with that?
absolutely. It is the earth in a small area.
Okay.
It's the natural earth in a small area.
Okay. So what do you do anything with straw bale gardening?
Absolutely.
Because that is an idea that I was introduced to by the Senior Center last summer. They did some, and that as well seems like it would work well in a small space.
Yes, it does. The secret to straw bale, it's either got to be straw, which is oat, wheat, or barley, not hay. And when you go to work with it, you turn it on its side so the cut ends of the stalks are up. And then you're going to charge it for 13 days. You're going to soak it until the water runs out the bottom. You want to take some really good worm castings or compost, and you put it in the top and work it in and water that in. And you do that for 13 days. Water, compost, and what's going to happen at the end of those 13 days, and take a 1/2-inch dowel rod that you can use that to push that down in the bale. At the end of 13 days, you should be able to take that dowel rod and slide it right through the bale. What you've done now is you put the biology through the whole bale. And you can use those bales for 2 years. You grow up and you grow down. So this year you plant tomatoes and peppers. They're going to grow up. At the end of the year, next year, put in potatoes and what you used last year and grow potatoes. So I usually suggest you do 2 straw bales. And then after that first year, you take this one and put it in this one, and then you grow potatoes.
Oh, what a great, see, I didn't know you could use them for 2 years.
Yes, you can.
What a great idea. Okay, you also, yes.
And the other thing you can do too, let's say you don't have any time to garden, you can put together an irrigation system that runs on a battery or a solar cell, and so you can water that garden twice a day, 7 days a week, and never have to water it all summer.
And you actually have a drawing of that, which I think down here you have some boards.
I do. I have some boards here. This happens to be the raised bed, and this happens to be 3/6 by 7, but it can be any size that you want it to be. We can put PVC along the sides of it, so we can put hoops on it to put poly over the top. Or you can take some what we call welded wire mesh, the kind of mesh you put in concrete, build a little frame that stands in the middle. Now you got a climber. So you can build all these things so it's easy on the eyes. And then this one,
not expensive, not particularly expensive either.
I would not use treated wood. I would use a cedar or a fir, but not treated. This just happens to be an irrigation system. These are the lines for the raised bed. This is the lines for the bucket table, and this is the straw bale. You just run one down the middle. You have a controller, and this can turn the water on and off twice a day for you, 30 minutes in the morning, 30 minutes in the afternoon, 7 days a week.
And because it's in the garden, I'm using far less water.
Far less water.
So I'm not wasting water.
Exactly.
Now, how expensive is an irrigation? Because that seems like it would be pretty expensive for me.
Well, you might spend $100 on the valve and the controller. Now, if you want to put the solar panel on, that might cost you another $100. Okay. And of course, if I'm going to teach it, I'm going to teach you everything you can do with it. So the ones I have are in a little wooden box. I can take the hose off here, take this off, put it in the garage, just put it away for the winter, come out in the spring, hook it up again, good to go. And the solar runs it all summer long. And if people want to see these in action, at Appleton Medical Center, there is a garden like this at Appleton Medical Center in the courtyard that they've used for the last 2 years. So
and you
it's
said
easy.
they never watered they never actually watered it other than this all summer last year.
Exactly. In fact, Paul Linsmeyer was in charge of sustainability there. He's now retired. And I was in a meeting with him 2 weeks ago, and we were talking about that garden. And I said, Paul, I understand they only weeded it twice that summer, about 10, 15 minutes each time. And he said, yeah, I did it once for 10 minutes. Because this irrigation system is down about 3 inches, and you got straw over the top, so it cuts off the light. So it can be very, very simple to do.
Wonderful. Okay.
This happens to be the straw bale cage, and this is the straw bale, and you turn it on its side, and that's the one that you're going to go ahead and put the compost in. This happens to be a cage that goes around it. That keeps the rabbits out of it a little bit. It's also easy on the eyes. I read a long, long time ago, you can garden in almost anything if it's easy on the eyes.
Yeah.
And then this is Grandma's table. Now, I'll be 75 in August, so I can say that.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
We'd call it Grandpa's, though, wouldn't we?
You could call it Grandpa's
there
table.
You go.
There you could. This is a piece of 2x4 3/4 inch plywood. Mm-hmm. And then there's a 2x3 and two 2x2s. You make the table, you build the frame that goes around it. These legs now are friction fit. So what happens, that leg slides in here, and this piece here, and this piece here, hold it in that corner, just like that.
Sure.
And now you put a 5-gallon bucket and 2-gallon buckets, and you drill holes in these, and you plant them. You don't have to bend over and weed. You don't have to get down on your hands and knees. It can be sitting on the right outside on the patio. Especially
with tomatoes and beans, because I mean, they're up a little bit higher, because bending over, and I'm pretty active, but still bending over for 20 minutes or 30 minutes picking beans or peas, I mean, that starts to hurt. My back gets sore. So this is kind of a neat idea for that.
Yes.
So
we're going to go through all these things in class.
All that and more. Plus, we get to pick your brain about all of the things.
Bring questions. Bring lots and lots. See, the more questions you get, the easier it is to teach.
That's right. And the less you have to talk. Isn't that great?
Exactly.
Jim, thank you so much for being here today.
It's been my pleasure.
April 22nd, part of Spring Extravaganza at Fox Valley Technical Center. Thank you for joining us for this episode of What's Happening Waupaca. I am Joni Kern, and we'll see you next time.